Okay. Hello, everybody. This is Mr. Royker back again with another in our series of conversations with artists. In this case, it's going to be a conversation with a graphic designer, but we'll get to that in just a moment. Today, we're going to be discussing color, and you'll want to remember to think about the colors you see in the art that you investigate through this project. So I'm going to give you a little overview of what little bit I think I know about color. And then I'm going to hand it off to my graphic designer friend in here just a moment. So color in visual art can be described in several ways. You can describe it in primary colors or pastels, just for example. Sometimes colors are described as evoking feelings of warmth and coolness. In addition to that, when we think about using color in art, here's a photograph that has brought blue and white together in such a way as to really give you a feeling of, oh, that must be frigid and cold. Or the angry bird is red on purpose because he's really upset and he's red, and that's a color that sometimes is used to create this sense of being angry. And I've got this picture here of these bananas. Two bananas on the outside are green with envy because they're not quite ripe like the center banana is just yet. But when I get this far in my thinking about color in art, I really sort of run out of things to say. And this is why I brought my friend Aaron, who's a graphic designer, in to help us in this conversation. Aaron, I know that you have prepared some stuff for us today to consider. Really grateful you joined us. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Aaron, why don't you take over the screen and give us the piece that you have created for us here about color and the things a student should keep in mind as they're examining color and what a graphic designer is thinking of as she does her work. So thank you.
Of course, and thank you for letting me do this. I'm actually really happy to do this. So I can just share my screen now and it'll work?
Please do.
Okay. Let's go. Okay, so Mr. Riker has asked me to give you a review or a crash course in color. My name's Erin Young, like he explained, so let's just get into it. So here I have color at a glance, where I put a bunch of colors here in pictures of where they come from. Like you see them in the crayons, and plant life, and chalks, and in the sky, like the space and the cosmos and everything like this. And why I chose these images is because color is much more than just paint or the crayons. It's actually a part of history and nature and everything that we see as humans, and that continues on when throughout history, and it's a big part of it, especially in art and, like I said, landscape and nature. And being human is really awesome because we're able to perceive color. So I just have basic vocabulary just to kind of get color out of the way here first. So you have your primary colors, red, yellow, blue, and your your secondary colors, which are orange, green, and violet. And the secondary colors are made up by mixing primary colors. For example, red and blue, you get purple. And then you also have a next step of colors, which are tertiary colors, which are the colors mixed, the primary and the secondary colors mixed together. So you have red, violet, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, green, and blue, violet. And then within each color, or sometimes called a hue, so the original, the red is a hue, then you can create tints and shades by adding either black or red to them. And this gives a lot of freedom and expression when we go into color theory a little bit more, when you're using it in any artwork or any work. Like, so for graphic design, it's something that I have to keep in mind different colors when I'm creating a color palette for a project. So I have an example of tints of the red and shades, and then also tints and shades of blue. And like I said, tints is white and shades are black, kind of like the lightness or darkness of a color.
Right.
And then moving into color even more, there's a lot of books on color theory, and it's been studied throughout history. So the most common image is a color wheel, and it's the easiest to explain a lot of the color theory because you have your primary and secondary colors aligned. So you have the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and violet. So the first half are considered warm tones, which are the red, orange, and yellow, and these evoke like warm feelings or happiness or sometimes anger or any emotion related to them, mostly because they come from colors that we usually see, like fire and the sun. And then the other half are cool colors, which, like Mr. Riker showed you in that ice blue picture, it's really blue, making it really cold. And then complementary colors exist on the color wheel because they are opposite each other on the color wheel, and they actually complement each other very well. And this is because the mixture of the color, for example, purple is of red and blue, which are the primary colors, and it's not having yellow in it. And this goes for orange and blue, because red and yellow make orange. And then in art and graphic design, everything, there's more color schemes that exist, like monochromatic, analogous, and triad schemes. Move on. So developing the snapshot of color theory a little bit more, the monochromatic here is of one hue, or that tone of blue. So you have the shades, the dark blues here, and then the light blues here, the tints. And then analogous are the orange, yellow, and green in this image, and they're all next to each other on the color wheel. And then triad is where you have three colors that are evenly spaced along the color wheel. Here it's red, blue, and yellow, and it's also including some shades and tints here to give it some more depth, which is another aspect of color theory. So actually, for example, when I was making this graphic, I was using shades to show depth here. So this red here, I'm not sure if you can see it, is the original red, and then I went a shade down here to make it look like it has some definition to it.
Yeah, so Aaron, I'm really impressed with the detail that you put into this presentation. This isn't just stuff you went and snagged off of the internet someplace. You
Some of these
made much of
decisions
this.
are, but yeah, I wanted to make some of the graphics because it felt like it was the easiest way for me to explain it, how I use it, and even to like, learning more about color theory. And honestly, because I'm taking a colors class right now, I'm learning more about color theory and how they actually move forward and backwards, which is important in art and everything. I mean, even the monochromatic thing, relating back to how cool colors feel emotions. I don't have an example here, but Pablo Picasso, he has an entire period of his paintings which are devoted to it's called the blue period.
Right.
And it's where it evokes these feelings of sadness, and that's actually I believe he says later on that yeah, he was upset in those times, and he let that color blue bleed through his emotions onto the painting and what he was drawing,
Right.
and everything like that. So color is important in history because of its symbolic reasonings, and this has to do with cultures and societies. And I'm sure, as you noticed in Mr. Recker's class, that things change a lot throughout history, and a lot of the stuff today is around or is just refined because of what happened in history, and it's changed. So, for example, the color red. In the Catholic Church, the Pope had his cardinals wear red, which was an important sign, and made his cardinals, they were the head of the church, I believe. And it was a sign of like a religious symbol, so it was important. And then this actually moves further into history, where the red was a popular pigment that was coming around because it was expensive. So a lot of places that had money, like the church and aristocracy, where you see the red seals, I have a picture here, a lot of envelopes were sealed with that. And so, but to emphasize how color changes throughout history, once red became easier to produce and less expensive, and a rarer color came about, like the rich hues of purple, that was more expensive, and that became a sign of wealth and everything like that. So then they kind of tossed red aside, and it became kind of more flashy. So that's throughout history, and then in different cultures, like the Hindu culture, their brides wear red on their wedding day, which is different from the Catholic or most American weddings where the woman wears white on her wedding day. And this is because in the
I
Hindu
don't believe I've ever been to a wedding where the bride wore red.
culture, oh
So
yeah,
yeah, I was surprised when you said that just now, that brides in Hindu culture wear red. That's a little shocking to hear because
yeah,
we're so culturated to think of white, purity, and like that.
yeah, and that exists along different cultures with different colors, like yellow too. Like um, in Nazi Germany, yellow was used as the Star of David to mark people as undesirable. But and then in the Chinese culture, yellow is a sign of wealth and importance and prosperity, like that. Um, and then green can mean like poison or like garden or paradise.
Right.
Um, and then to continue on with red, I have a picture of the Scarlet Letter where red shows something as being bad or like upsetting. So in the Scarlet Letter, I believe the protagonist's name was Esther.
Esther Prynne, yeah, she's been marked with the scarlet letter for her sin
Mm-hmm.
because her sins are like scarlet. Yeah, and they marked her with that. That's a really good example of using red in literature and the symbolism of shame and sin kind of coming through in the piece of literature. It's a spoken word, right? But it
Yeah,
creates this visual image in our mind of this woman with her. It's not a varsity letter she's wearing. That's
no,
her adultery letter.
yeah.
Exactly.
And so it's interesting to see the evolution and kind of like the teeter totter of the color of red between being like positive towards the church in the cardinal scenario, and then red in Esther's sense where it's a sin, and that's and usually sin is bad, the sin is hell, and then the popes are kind of like the way to get to heaven, kind of like you're supposed to follow it that way. So red is like good, and then here red is bad. So
Yeah. Very complicated.
yeah. So actually, in a project that I did, I used this red color that we're just talking about, this good and bad kind of thing, where I made a brand called Femme Fatale Tea. So this entire project was to make a fake t-shirt shop. Um, so like I said, I made the branding that includes the logo, and then I made graphics for the t-shirts, and then I built the actual website. So to do this, I had to think about the color palette and think about color theory and think about the symbolism of the colors and what I wanted my brand to say. So with that, I wanted it to be, well, my target audience was for women, but the whole persona was I wanted to be empowering, but still embrace femininity. Um, so if you can see, the name of it is Femme Fatale, which takes the language of Femme Fatale and twists it again. Which Femme Fatale is like a woman who is marked as like bad and she brings down men and stuff like that. That's where it's used in history. And then some of the taglines I use: apparel for forward women, and then support the notion that she can wear your femme fatale. Um,
I love this idea. Whenever you showed this to me before, I thought, wow, this is a winner of an idea. I
yeah,
hope you do something with this. This is really great.
yeah. I mean, it's really personal because like this is kind of the foot I wanted to put forward, kind of the feminist, but more of empowerment and equality, and just kind of like I'm not sure if you're gonna have to bleep it out, but being a badass.
Yeah, we'll
um,
see.
and like I even had to think about it, white versus black versions of it, with the FFT mark, based on how it was gonna be represented, either on a black background or a white background. So if I wanted the logo to appear like you can see here on the shirt, the femme fatale tee, and then the graphic I did is gray, so it shows up better on the red than in the header of the website here. I have it in black and red because it's on white. And that is like where you can go even further into color, specifically in graphic design for me, is like how is it going to be produced and where is it going to be located? Like, is it going to be on the web or is it going to be printed out somewhere? Is it going to be paper? And then, like, this is a lot different than what's happening in, like, I'm sure your social studies class right now, where you're looking at paintings and people, they don't have pictures yet. So that's capturing light, and that's where RGB comes in, and it's mixing these colors that you see on the screen just from red, green, blue, which is an entirely different process than what we just talked about, about the primary and the secondary colors. And then CMYK, which is the mixture of cyan, which is a blue, magenta, which is a red, pink, and yellow, and then K, which represents black, in a printer, and that mixes again everything you see printed out, like the books and everything. Like this is printed in CMYK or Pantone. We're gonna get to that in just a second. Or but then the fact that you're seeing it through your screen right now is your screen is interpreting everything and mixing it out in red and green and blue. But color is extensive, and I have a book called The Secret Language of Color: Science, Nature, History, Culture, Beauty of Red, Orange, Yellow, Green, Blue, and Violet, which it goes into color theory and basically the symbolism in all of the colors and how it can be used, which a lot of it relates back to history again. Like I could continue talking about, and then Pantone, which is the love-hate relationship in the design world, because it is the true color, because it's like you take this ink that is not going to be a mixture of CMYK or RGB, and it is going to be that exact color every time. It's very expensive, but it is used for offset printing and big products like Coca-Cola. There's a Pantone for Coca-Cola red again, that is the same exact tone, color all the time. Whereas if you were to use CMYK and say you went and you got like your cans produced at 2 different printers, and then when they're up there on the shelf next to each other, they're gonna look slightly off. Right. There's a real chance of that happening.
So this sort of stuff is the things that a graphic designer has to remember all the time and take into consideration as they're putting together their work for the advertising world, for the marketing world, and that sort of thing. But also artists who are putting together their work are thinking about these very similar sorts of issues. Erin Young is a graphic designer. She is a Pontiac High School alumni, my former student from back in the day. Erin, I want to thank you so much for joining us and having this conversation about color. Wish you all the best in your career. I hope you get that femme fatale tea thing off the ground. That would be great. This is my class giving you applause for your good work today. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Thanks. We'll
I
see
hope
you.
I inspired some people to pursue graphic design.
Me too.
It's
Okay.
fun.
And with that, I'm going to stop the recording.